What is the dumbest lie you told that became true? In 5th grade, I didn't feel like running the mile in peace, so I told the teacher I felt sick. She knew I was full of it, but she let me go to the nurse anyway. I figured I'd just lie down for the period and get sent back to class. Nurse took my temperature and it read 102. So school policy stated I had to be sent home. Got the rest of the day off to lie in bed and watch Disney Channel. I told some people at my college that my nickname was Rockin' Reese the Donkey Eater. They put it in the registry and a bunch of staff started calling me that when I checked into events or whatever, and so soon everyone called me that. I gave myself a nickname and it stuck. I was probably about 7 and on vacation with my family, and they weren't paying any attention to me and constantly interrupting me. They were talking about someone they knew who had cows, so in annoyance I point in an arbitrary direction and yell, "Hey, a cow," and they all go silent. Then I hear my dad say, "Oh my god, you're right," just as the skinniest cow emerges from behind some foliage. "Sorry, I can't go tomorrow. I am sick." Got sick the same night. At the end of 1st grade, for some reason I told my friends I was moving and wouldn't be back next year. No idea what my reasoning was. Later that night a bunch of shit went down with my now ex-stepdad and my mom, and I ended up moving states the next day. I lied I was bit by a dog, to sound cool as a 6-year-old when my parents asked me about an open wound, and got rabies shots. Couple months later, I really got bit by a dog. It was not cool. I told my 9th grade music teacher that I played the flute. I was sitting in my first day of advanced music class. Then I thought, this shit. I'm not gonna carry this big ass trombone around. So I said flute. Then I had to buy one. Parents weren't happy about the uninformed swap to a brand new instrument, but I stuck through it, and not only did I pass the course with a good grade, I ended up playing flute in a marching band for a few years. When Transformers 1 came out, me and my brother loved it. Then Transformers 2 was announced, and without seeing anything or knowing anything I told him Megatron would come back and was revived. Completely lied. Go to see the movie with my brother and dad and uncle. Ding ding ding, Megatron revival. I am 18 years or older. When I was in reception or kindergarten, for those not in the UK, I went around telling everyone that I was a hairdresser for some reason, specifically insisting that I cut and styled my own hair. Obviously no one believed me, so I proceeded to cut my entire ponytail off from just behind the bobble, leaving me with a bald patch and a sort of horseshoe-style gradient of hair length around it. When I was 12 I had geography teacher I really hated. Even had the surname of Grief and lived up to it in its entirety. Wednesdays I had geography as my first lesson of the day, and I woke up one morning and decided that I really didn't want to go to school that day. I massively played up a really small stomachache I had, and surprisingly my dad, who usually never bought my bullshit, took me seriously and we went to the doctor's surgery. After being examined by the doctor, he told me that I had an inflamed appendix and that it actually looked quite serious. I was as surprised as anybody, and 6 hours later I was in hospital having it removed. I'm on my way. I used to work at Walmart and would always be the first choice to fill in for the cart pushers when they called out. One day when we had heavy rain, I wrapped my hand up with a bandage thing and told the managers that I injured my hand, so I could not push carts. Of course the cart pushers were all sick on the day we had heavy rain. 45 minutes into my shift I actually injured my hand. Took like 2 weeks to heal. I was 7 at the time. I was at my friend's house and she said, "My dad is stronger than yours. He makes my mom shout when they wrestle." I just said, "My dad is the Hulk. He smashes my mom every night." I then proceeded to say, "Hulk smash." The next day my friend had a sleepover at my house. We heard my mom's bed crash and break. We went to see what happened. We entered their room and they both covered up quickly with the sheets on the floor by the broken bed. I will never get a girlfriend. I mean, like, it hasn't happened yet. But I had to write a research paper, but obviously I hadn't finished it on time. So I just randomly generated some letters and numbers into a Word document and sent it to the teacher. Even the school's IT guy told me that it was just bad luck and my file just got corrupted. I love you. No, Mom, I won't ever drink, smoke or do drugs. I'm okay, just tired. When I was in high school I didn't want to go to a class. So I ditched it and hung out on the bleachers by PE since the freshman football coach would have kids just play flag football, and I was on the varsity team at the time. I told my mom I was the tar for that class instead. And when the school called about my absences from the class one was ditching, I insisted I had been going to PE, and when she told the school they ended up switching me into the class as the tar. The teacher, who obviously didn't give a shit, was giving me an A in the class. And one day towards the end of the semester he asked me what I was doing there every day anyway and what class one was supposed to be in. I told him something like I somehow talked myself into this class a few weeks in. "You're giving me an A though," and he just sort of chuckled and said okay. He said I could be a ringer for the girl team as they went into the playoffs or just chill. Played one game. The girls were jerks. Went back to the bleachers. Kept my A. That no one likes me. When I was 11 I pretended to be gay because I didn't like a girl back. God, if I wasn't in for a surprise a few years later. When I was 10, I pretended to have depression because I thought it was aesthetic. Look at me now, ma. I'm fully diagnosed. I'm 21. Why does this have platinum after 4 minutes? Niece try. 4 AM. On mobile. Y'all know the drill. My father has glasses. I wanted glasses. Because I wanted glasses so bad, I started to pretend I couldn't see correctly. I would complain that I could never see the board correctly, or when I read books the words seemed weird. I must have been extremely convincing because my mother eventually took me to the eye doctor. Oh no, I thought. What happens when they find out I can actually see correctly? Well, we go back and he takes a look behind my eyes with some medical voodoo. This was like 19 years ago, and he actually finds some weird spots back there. I then had to do the normal eye test, and since I thought the jig was up, I actually tried. I failed. I left that day with a lens prescription and 2 years worth of eye drops. Not the dumbest, but quite silly and funny. Several years ago we were in Skype conference call with friends. And in the middle of conversation we suddenly heard some noises. I jokingly asked, "Did you fell off your chair?" And everyone laughed. Then we hear some more noises and a friend's muffled voice, "Guys, wait a minute. I fell off my chair." Needless to say we laughed to stomach pain. We were around 16. Good times. I'm not going to have sex with anyone besides the person who I marry. As it turns out, the man who I lost my virginity to is now my fiancé. Interestingly, the Old Testament doesn't prohibit premarital sex as long as it is literally prior to marriage, i.e., you can have sex as long as you marry later. And if you don't marry, the man is just supposed to compensate the father of the young lady for her reduced value on the marriage market. My grandma died. But if you don't tell anyone at a job, you can use grandma dying as a get-out-of-work-free excuse. My grandma has been dead since 2005. She's died a few more times in the past 14 years. I hate you. I used to lie about video games as a kid. Yeah, I was that kid. But my best lie was about the secret world in Mario. I was desperate for attention, and I knew that being the keeper of secret Nintendo lore had a good shot at working. So I started fibbing and didn't stop until I'd backed myself into an unprovable corner. I said that you had to go to the underground level and enter the pipe special. Then you'd go to a whole new world. One that didn't even have the usual numbers or anything. And it was the only Mario level that was infinite. You could just play it forever and ever. Just as much Mario as you could want. At first, I was listened to, it sounds cool. Then I was vilified, an obvious lie, and then a kid came to school claiming he'd find my secret world. I didn't believe him to start. Because, obviously, I lied about it. I know there's no secret level, but it turns out that if you jump into the pipe wall at the end of 1 to 2 while crouched, you can slide through the wall to the warp zone. And if you hop into a pipe before it loads, the game glitches and sends you to world -1. This is a water level that has no exit, and you swim forever, or at least until you run out of air and die. Suddenly, I was a hero and the keeper of secret Nintendo lore, but thankfully I had a subscription to Nintendo Power by then, so all the secrets I told from then on were legit. I'm gonna hit this one DEAG. Yes, I remembered my homework assignment. It's in my backpack. Trust me, I'll turn it in. In high school, my friend and I went door to door collecting money for a skate park. At least that is what we told the adults who we were collecting from. We actually used the money to buy beer. A few months later they started building a skate park. That's just fraud. I'm doing fine in school. I once told my mom I felt like I was gonna puke to get out of going to the dentist. I ended up puking later that day. Guess that's my karma for lying. This happened at the beginning of this year. We had to do a project where we put 3 items, sometimes 4 if you really wanted to, that represented yourself in a bag. The introduction had to have a fun fact. My birthday is June 30th and my opening fact was that I have the same birthday as Yandere Dev, Sailor Moon and my dog. Only the dog one was a lie. Lo and behold, a month later my mother gets a new puppy for me and my brother. We named him Max, who has the same birthday as me. I told my friends I was in a long-distance relationship with a girl I met in a random Instagram meme group chat who lived in a completely different country. We have been now in an official relationship for almost a year and I'm flying to see her in a month and I couldn't be happier. We were required to learn the guitar for music class in high school and my high school crush told me she was having a hard time learning the instrument. Told her that I could bring my guitar to school the next week so I could help her. Problem is I don't own a guitar and I knew as much guitar as she probably did. That Friday I used a large chunk of my savings to buy a guitar and used Saturday and Sunday to learn as much as I could. Only took breaks from practicing to go to the bathroom, eat, and shower. Things went fairly well with the impromptu lessons. Partly because I learned a lot of those things recently, so I knew exactly what to do to overcome the early stages of guitar playing. Never got to go out with my crush, but I did end up with a skill I treasure and practice to this day. I hate chocolate. About 10 years back I started a new job, and some lady was offering around chocolates. I politely declined several times before having to insist I don't actually like chocolates, as she would leave me alone. News quickly spread about the new guy that didn't like chocolate, and now it's become the reality. Nobody offers me chocolate anymore, or if they do they quickly retract. People make savory stuff in the office now to cater for me. Thing is, I don't hate chocolate. I just didn't want any at that time. 10 years later my colleagues have never seen me eat chocolate. I am ready to be an adult. I've received Reddit Gold before. This is gonna get drowned. But, in 5th grade one told everyone that during summer I was gonna move to Hawaii. The plan was to get people to confess crushes to me or hatred towards me. Things like that. Nobody confessed anything and now I live in Hawaii. Lol. Barely qualifies. In my Spanish class, the teacher asked the class what a word meant. I just yelled something and that was actually it. I didn't end up saying it out loud, but I do remember back in 2012, almost blurting out to a carpool filled with my principal and 2 best friends having a heated fight about gay marriage and adoption rights that I was gay. None of them actually knew any LGBTQ+ people, and I think I thought that if I made the stakes more personal that they'd stop making it seem like gay people were subhuman or deformities of nature in their arguments both for and against. I'd personally grown up in a really open household and my aunt and her girlfriend were a stable aspect of my childhood. I probably could have just mentioned them, but somewhere in my dramatic 15-year-old mind I felt like it wasn't a big enough bomb to drop on this car trip of horrors. Thus the almost shouting of "I'm gay" at full volume from the back seat. Looking back, it's probably a good thing I held my tongue. I dealt with enough rumors about being a lesbian in my last few high school years. I didn't need to jump-start that. But the visceral and clear memory of thinking, what can I do to fix this? I should shout "I'm gay" as loud as I can, and oh shit, what if I can't convince them I'm not actually gay? I mean, I'm not gay, right? If they don't believe me that I'm not gay, does that mean I am gay? And then having a quite unnoticed identity crisis in the backseat for the next hour as we drove home is burned into my brain. I'm a happily, mostly out, bisexual, queer gal now, but when I did not know that yet in high school. I was a late bloomer and trauma tends to muck things up. Thus I believe I credit that and a particularly enlightening driver's ed course the next summer as my realizing what all those years of confusing feelings might have meant. That I would have a dog by Christmas this year. My mom said impossible. So I secretly saved up money behind her back and my grandma loaned me $20 so that I could have the full $150 for my little guy. I came home and my mom practically shit herself. So yeah, here is some cuteness. Trump had a chance to become president. In my sophomore year of high school we had a mandatory history fair that we had to participate in. I hated my school because, for a nice neighborhood, they didn't give a pumped all the money to athletics and let academics suffer. Thanks. American South. For example, the textbook we were using that year for the history class was the same one I'd used in 8th grade in a different school in New Jersey, so I wasn't exactly smarter than anyone else. I'd just learned the material already and spent the rest of the time just reading other stuff to kill time in class. But, given I could see how little the administration actually made an effort, I wanted to see how far I could push it. So I took the option of writing a paper which I completely made up one Saturday morning while watching infomercials and generally not giving a damn. Granted, I hit the necessary page word count, but completely falsified all my sources. They were all internet ones too, so all anyone would have had to do was type in one of the links and it would have been over. But I figured the worst thing that would happen was that it would drop me a letter grade and still pass the class. Turns out, I took it to the limit. So, I go there to pick up my paper after it had been judged, expecting the whole time to get called out on it, because it's a county-wide affair with a bunch of schools participating and I figure someone has to call it out. But there's nothing. Paper is an A, and I go away even more disillusioned than when I started the farce. That's not the end though. The next day over the school announcements they're recounting the history fair and my name gets called with a bunch of other people. It turns out that I had left too early the previous evening picking up my paper and missed the award I had won. Along with the others I had won the World History Award. It even came with a plaque. So, thanks Florida Public Schools.